Hello everyone, welcome back to the Cyrus Fiene Team channel. Today we are in Northeast Seattle in the Matthews Beach area performing a dock inspection. If you look at the Seattle map, you probably have noticed there's a lot more water than land. And of course there are waterfront homes, and just like our clients today, there's lots of waterfront properties that are bought and sold throughout the year. And one of the most critical things you need to do when buying a waterfront property that has a dock is a dock inspection. So today I'm going to document the process and what my clients are looking for and what you should be looking for if you buy a waterfront home with a dock, and what you should be looking for during the inspection process. Now, of course, my clients also did a home inspection and sewer scope, because those are two critical aspects to buying a single family home. Obviously making sure the health of the home, the roof, siding, and electrical and plumbing is all in great shape. But of course, doing the sewer line as well, which I think is often overlooked by many buyers in the area. And you really want to be inspecting the sewer line and doing your own due diligence. You want to have the inspector that actually comes out and performs it. I'll give you one example. I had a client who we got the sewer line report and video from the seller, and it turned out they only went halfway down the line. When we did our sewer scope, we went all the way out to the main, and that's where all the issues were, in the latter half of the line. But anyway, you can watch our video on sewer scopes right here. In the meantime, today's focus will be on the dock. So the dock inspection consists of a few different aspects. One is the bulkhead, to make sure that the property doesn't have the coast where the water meets the land, doesn't have that land eroding away and the soil eroding away, because if that's eroding the bulkhead, it's going to basically cause the property to fill that space and kind of sink, right? So we want to make sure that that is well intact. And of course, the posts and beams under the dock, we want to make sure that those are intact and not falling apart or rotting. So there's different tiers to a dock inspection. Today, we're doing a visual inspection, but there are multiple different levels, and you can kind of address which level you want and request that depending on what the dock appears to need and kind of the age of the dock. Outside of the bulkhead, the main area that the inspectors are looking is essentially where the water meets the air, because that's where the decay tends to happen. So we're going to be taking a look at the entire underbelly, which you cannot see, obviously, when you're just walking above the deck. Fingers crossed this goes well. And of course, if there is an issue, there's always a solution. So talking about, what our next steps would be if there are issues and what they can do to resolve any cracks or rotting. You never want to wait on fixing any issues within the dock. They're only going to inevitably get worse, right? If you don't do anything about them, the rotting is going to get worse, the cracking is going to get worse, and with usage, you're going to cause many more issues much more quickly. So getting ahead of it sooner than later is really, really ideal. And since we're on Lake Washington, there are some benefits being in the fresh water and on the lake. While the lake does have its own atmosphere and movement, it's not like the Puget Sound, where you have salt water that you're dealing with and the tides coming in and out that can be really violent in some intense Pacific Northwest storms. As I mentioned, today we are doing a visual inspection. So the inspector is coming in, putting their dive gear on and getting in the water, and essentially doing a visual inspection of the underbelly of the deck and the pillars. And of course, if there's further issues or indications that there's problems, we'll get it further evaluated. But this initial inspection is purely visual, and we will get a recording of the work and some photos while they're down there, so we can have some documentation. In the event that we need further evaluation, we have a good starting point and some photo evidence to provide the sellers if they request it and if it comes to that. Now, one of the more modern ways to fix a post that is rotted or cracked is they actually sleeve the post and pump in, I believe, some epoxy and some other materials to basically solidify the post in place. They generally come in 8-foot slices and 8-foot sleeves, I should say, and are obviously cut custom to each pillar so that you have the right length and dimensions. That type of fix is essentially a multi-year fix. It's almost as though you have a brand new pillar there, so not to worry. Generally, we see the cost be about $3,000 to $4,000 per post. Of course, that could vary for you and where you're at and where you're living, but that is a very general estimate for what it can cost per pillar, and it depends on the dock and how many posts and pillars it has. Now, I've mostly been talking about from the perspective of having timber pilings and timber posts under the dock. That's largely because this dock, as well as our neighbors here, have primarily timber. Now, that being said, new construction, you're often going to see steel pilings, and steel has kind of a different process and different issues like corrosion and rust, and basically how thin or thick those walls are within those steel pilings. That's a totally different inspection. Not going to be the case this time around since we're using timber pilings here. But just a side note, if you're looking at a property with steel pilings, the process more or less is the same. You're just looking for different symptoms. So I do want to touch on the cost of this dock inspection. Now, today, as I mentioned, we're doing a visual inspection with a verbal explanation of the condition. That costs about $700, between $600 and $800 is what you can kind of expect. It's obviously much more involved. They're getting on the wetsuit, they're diving under the water, and they're recording a video as well. So that's roughly the range you can expect here in the Seattle area. Now, tier 2 of the dock inspection that is a lot more involved. It costs closer to $2,000, and you're talking about testing the pilings, a full photo video report, a drawing of the dock as well, and much more thorough documentation of the dock and the condition. So there's a third tier that is way more expensive, closer to $10,000, where they will actually use waves to determine the density of the pilings. I won't get into the details because that is primarily for commercial docks and much more substantial docks, unlike what we have here, which is a lot more basic, being that it's a residential property. Thank you guys for watching today. I hope you learned something. And of course, if you have an interest in waterfront property or any property in Seattle for that matter, definitely shoot us a message. If you have any follow-up questions, leave a comment down below and I'm happy to help you get some answers. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and we plan to continue to do more educational content like this. So we would love to have you along for the journey. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.